We'll wait a couple seconds while people are still filtering in. Okay, welcome everyone. We'll begin the CIECA cast. Welcome everyone. Today's presenter is Rick Blusick of State Farm Insurance. Rick is a member of CIECA's Architecture Committee and is the author of the BATT tool. Rick completed his computer science degree in 1991 from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. He has been working as a developer and lead developer in the insurance industry for over 25 years. His current role at State Farm is a team lead of a business-to-business B2B team. Before I turn over the presentation to Rick, audience, if you have any questions during the presentation, please direct them to me using the conference panel. We have allocated some time at the end, so we will get to as many of the questions as time permits. I will now switch over to Rick, and he will begin the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Fred, and welcome everybody to the CIECA cast. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll start talking about a new testing tool that the CIECA Architecture Team uses. The tool is a BMS automated test tool, or we have the acronym BATT, B-A-T-T for it. So what does this tool do, and what is it? This tool is used by the CIECA Architecture Team to validate BMS XML instance test files against the BMS XML schemas. It was designed and built with the CIECA Architecture Team workflow in mind, and is available for all CIECA members to use. So as you guys probably know, the BMS is released twice a year, and the CIECA Architecture Team workflow is basically that we need to test both of those times per year to make sure that the new test instances will actually work against the new schemas. With testing and quality assurance getting more complex in the industry, the BATT tool helps the CIECA Architecture Team and CIECA members to validate instance test case files against the CIECA BMS schemas. So every time of those 2 times per year we deploy the new BMS schemas and standards, we are always adding features that by nature will make it a little more complex. And part of what this tool is doing is ensuring that we're not breaking any past data that used to validate. All that still needs to validate in our current schemas also. So with this tool, the goal is to create a validation tool with a browser-based UI that is lightweight and not dependent on external libraries or runtimes. Previously, the CIECA Architecture Team would basically have a different tool, and they would move individual files in and out of that tool and validate and record the results. The problem with that was that it was very tedious, of course, and when you're doing hundreds of test files like that, it's very tedious, it's prone to human error, and really takes a long time. So we were looking for a way to automate this. So this tool is designed to validate a large volume of instance test case files against a CIECA BMS schema and provide a quick feedback. CIECA currently maintains hundreds of instance test case files, and the count is growing with each BMS release. Okay, so what about testing for quality assurance? CIECA will try to maintain backwards compatibility with messages. So what that means is any message that was validated against last year's standards or the year before or the year before that will still be valid with the latest schemas and standards. So we strive real hard to make that happen. We don't only say it, but we need to actually test to make sure that this happens. So for quality assurance, it is a best practice to test this. So that's why we regression test all past instance test cases with the current BMS release. So how does this tool work? So this is a browser-based tool. However, you actually need to download it and run it on your local workstation. And the reason is the test files you're testing with are actually on your workstation. This is designed to work with lots of test files, hundreds of them or thousands. You don't want to unnecessarily transmit and upload all those hundreds of thousands of test files to a server or something like that. You want to actually move the processing to where the data is. So this is why we need to run this tool on the workstation. So the fact that it's running on the workstation rather than a server, this prevents unnecessary transmission of data between the user's workstation and the server, which in turn improves performance. So for performance reasons, it is most efficient to run this tool where the data is. Another thing too, so we can't just run this tool from a server and expect it to read your local files in your workstation. So for that reason, we can't just run it from a server. This is why you have to download the application to your workstation. There's browser constraints, security constraints that prevent a server-based application from accessing your local files. So some key features of this tool is that it validates hundreds of instance test case files in seconds. It's portable and lightweight. It has a browser-based user interface, and it builds a report with validation results, including validation errors. Okay. There are some shortcomings, limitations of this tool. Currently, this tool does use Microsoft's MS XML as an ActiveX object. This technology is deprecated, or if not deprecated, the writing is on the wall. It will be deprecated in the future. However, it does still work, and it is still supported by Internet Explorer and the latest Windows version 10. We use ActiveX because really there is no easy replacement for this functionality in this tool. Right now, the tool, another shortcoming is this tool only runs in Internet Explorer 11 on Windows. It might run in earlier versions of Internet Explorer, but this is not tested. It does not run in Firefox, Chrome, Edge, or any other browser. Another shortcoming is that it cannot save real large amounts of configuration. So if you're, trying to validate hundreds, thousands, whatever test files, the tool itself can't actually. It saves data in a cookie, which is has a 5K character limit. If you try to save more data than that, it simply cannot do it. There is a workaround if someone actually needs to be able to save larger amounts of configurations, but as the tool is out of the box, it won't save it, but there is a workaround if anybody ever needs that. Another shortcoming and limitation is that you do need to specify each and every single test file that you want validated. It'd be nice if we can just point to a directory and say, validate everything in this directory, but because of limitations of the tools, the programming language this is written in JavaScript, you simply can't do that right now. Okay, so this is the last slide, and we're going to jump into the tool pretty quick here. This tool is hosted at this website here, ciecatools.com/BATT. And I'll bring this slide up again later on too if you don't have time to write down now. This site has some download instructions, some frequently asked questions, some help and tutorials, and it has a contact us page. Okay, so let's take a look at the application itself. Okay, so this is the BMS automated test tool here. When you bring it up, it's going to look just like this. Now, this is a very busy page, and it's very busy because it's configured for the CIECA Architecture Team for the last release in 2016 of the standards. This actually has configurations for all hundreds of test files that we used to validate the last schemas in 2016. Just to show you real quick and kind of get to the heart of the matter what this does, and I'm going to go through in more detail this page later on. It's very busy right now. You don't have to worry about it. But if you hit validate at the very bottom, and just note these are configured to test hundreds of test files. After a few seconds, you're going to get this page here, which is the results page. So what this is showing you is that for every one of these files here, it ran against this schema right here, and it told you whether it passed or it failed. And if it failed, it will tell you why it failed. So most of these pass. I will say I did plant one error in some of the data, so you can see what a failure would look like. If I scroll down through this, you can see where it failed. And it's saying here the BMS version with a 5.x.0 failed to parse. What that means is, in this case, 5.x.0 is not one of these valid versions for the schema. Just to show you what a failure would look like. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And again, these are hundreds of test files. I'll show you at the bottom. There's 436 test files that were validated in 5.5 seconds. Now, this is the real power of the tool. Previously, to test 436 files and even produce a report, record the results like this, probably would take a small team all day to get this done. As you can see in this case, once we have it configured, this took only 5.5 seconds. So I'm going to go back to the main page here again. I'm going to show you a couple things at the top. The very upper right-hand corner, you see the version number, version 1.0. And in fact, there's a link here. If you click on it, this will show you past versions. Now, this is version 1.0. However, we did have past versions last year that were in a beta state. So in other words, they're basically this tool is being tested by the CIECA Architecture Team. We feel like it's been tested enough and we have enough functionality that we can release it to more CIECA members at this point. So if you ever want to see the history of changes, you can click on the version up in the upper right-hand corner. This tool basically has two different sections to it. At the very top here, there's a default path to test files and a default test files, which is a listing of test files. These two sections make up the default section. Below that, you have validation groups. So in this case, here's validation group 1. If you scroll down, we've got actually 6 validation groups. And again, this is configured at the moment for the CIECA Architecture Team. The CIECA Architecture Team has the schemas in our standardized folder and the test files in standardized folder. They don't have to do anything else other than click validate, and it validates all these test files for them. But I'll show you how to customize this more for yourself. And I'm going to start that by removing all 6 validation groups. Continue to remove. Okay. So all 6 validation groups are gone. I'm also going to clear the default section too. Now, right now, if I clear, it's going to apply to both the path, which is this right here, and also applies to test files. Now, if I want to clear, let's just say just the test files, so clear, the test files is checked, so when I hit clear, just these test files will actually clear out of here. That's what these controls are for. So if I hit clear, just those test files are gone. If I want to clear both of them, then I can click both of them, hit clear, and it cleared the path to test files also. Okay, so at its minimum, if I didn't configure this tool for the CIECA Architecture Team, this is kind of a blank page for this tool. Right now, there's no test files specified, and there's no path specified. So if you do validate, it's going to validate 0 files in almost 0 seconds. So what we need to do is, in the default section, we need to add a path to your test files. So what you want to do is you want to navigate to where you keep your test files. Pick some test files that you want to test with. So the first thing you do is in Windows Explorer, just go ahead and copy the path, and you can paste it up here. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to move the names of all these test files. You can see there's 98 of them here. Move all the names of these test files to this field right here. Now the question is, how do you do that? I mean, you can take each one of these individual file names and type them in here. Of course, we don't want to do that, though. A better way to do this, there's a tutorial, by the way, on this. Kind of goes kind of fast, but if we have a tutorial I'll show you guys later on that shows step-by-step what I'm doing right here. So I'm typing in CMD for command here. and then I type in dir/b, and then the vertical bar, and then clip, enter. So what that did was it took a directory listing of everything in this directory, all the file names, and just the file names, just the /b does, and it puts it in a clipboard for you. So go back to the BATT tool, and you can like right-click and paste, and it puts all the file names in there. One thing I want to show you too. So I'm going to clear the test files. You will notice throughout this presentation there are warnings. It's supposed to be kind of helpful to help you show, if fields required, or what this is trying to do at this point is trying to actually validate this path for you. However, if there's no files in here, it can't validate the path. So that's why it's basically saying it cannot be determined if this path is valid until at least one file is entered below. So I'll put those files back. Click off there. And then that satisfies the warning, so the warnings are gone. So even at this point, so now we've got the defaults configured, but there's no validation groups yet. So what that means is even if I validate even at this point, it's still not going to validate anything. This is just a placeholder for, we use an architecture team for the most frequently tested XML test files. Next thing you want to do is you want to add a validation group. Okay, and the validation group has 4 things in it. It has an optional description. It has the path and file of the schema that you want to use to validate these test files. It has a path to test files and the test files themselves. Now, the path to test files by default will use the default path to test files above, which is this right here. So by default, you're using, that's what this default is. We're using this default path right here. And same thing for test files. These test files use the default test files, which are these right here. So all you really need to do at this point then for this validation group 1 is select the schema, and you can navigate to. I happen to be navigated right to where I want to go already, so I'm going to pick the schema that I want to use. And again, the description is optional, so I'll just put in something like my first validation. Okay. And then now I can click validate. Now what this should do is it should use this schema right here, which is the 2016 release 2 5.4.0, and it should go to this path right here, and it should test every single one of these test files right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit validate. Okay. And there you go. So most of them pass. Of course, the one of them I purposely planted an error in is still here, and it failed. Otherwise, they all pass, and it shows you at the very bottom 98 files were validated in 6.85 seconds. Now, if you want to validate some more using a different schema or a different group of test files, you can add another validation group. So this is your second validation group now. What you can do in this case is you can use a different schema. So instead of the extended schemas, I'm going to use the classic code schema this time, which doesn't check the actual codes, whereas the extended one does. There's a difference. Click on root again. Okay. So I'm going to put just the optional description in my second validation. Okay, so this is pretty much doing the same thing. It's using the same default path to test files. It's using the same default test files. The only difference is it's using the classic code. I like this part. It's using the classic code schemas rather than the code extension schemas. The code extension will test and validate that the code lists are valid. The classic code will not test that. So there's a difference. And here I'm just testing the same data against 2 different schemas. I'm going to validate this. Okay, and you can see the first one got the same results. Okay, now there's a second validation, my second validation. So here's the second table here. And in this case, they all pass. And again, the reason is we're using the same data. The first time, the first schema is actually checking to make sure that this is a valid code, whereas the second time through, this does not check that, so that's why it passes this time. So after that, we tested that. We see 196 files were validated in 1.465 seconds. Okay. So let's say, for example, you want to, let me show you this first. So if you don't like the order that was validated in, let's say you want to, for some reason, just switch the order. You want to do the first validation in second order. So you can take this validation group 1 and see where it says my first validation right here. You can move this whole thing down, and it's going to basically reverse the order of these two validation groups. So now you can see that my first validation is actually in my validation group 2. So you can manipulate the order if you would like. You know, you could have done the same thing, but moving this up right here too. If I validate again, you can see my second validation is now up on top, and my first validation is the second validation table that was validated. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move this back up, put it in the proper order. So my first validation is first, my second validation is second. Now let's say that for group 2, I don't want to use defaults here. I want to use my own custom path and test files. So what I do in this case is instead of using a default path, I'm going to change it. So it opens up, you can pick out whatever you want. So you have to go to Windows Explorer at this point and navigate to whatever test instance files you want to use. And again, you're doing something similar that we did before when we first captured the names of and path of the first group of test files and paths. So you're going to copy the path here and paste it here. Okay, and same thing for the test files here. We don't want to use a default. We want to use our own test files. So you open that one up, go to Windows Explorer. Same thing here, do cmd for command and directory /b, pipe, clip. Okay. And again, what that does is going to take the names of all the files in this directory, which is all these, and put it in the clipboard for me. And then I can just paste them right in there. Okay. So now this is a whole different group. Validation. The second validation has a whole different group of test files than the first one does, and they're not the default ones anymore. So if I validate this, okay, you can see there's a different group of test files in my second validation group now, and they all passed. Now to keep going, we'll add one more validation group. So we got validation group 3. Now let's say that we liked what we did in validation group 2, but we just want to make one slight change. We can copy from validation group 2, and this applies to all of these: description, which is this, the schema, the path, and the test files, okay, because they're all checked. So everything should be populated from whatever is in group 2 here. So right now I got validation group 2 selected. I hit the copy from button. There we go. So it basically created an exact copy in validation group 3 of whatever was in validation group 2. So I'll change this to call it my third validation. And you can change the schema if you would like here too. So I'll click on that, select the code extension schema this time, and then validate. Okay, so I got my first validation group is validated, my second validation group, and my third validation group now. So just like I showed you earlier at the top we showed you earlier in the default section, you can clear either the path itself, which is this, or the test files right here, depending on what you select in these two here. So in the validation groups, you have something similar, although you have a few more options. You can clear, whatever you select, description, schema, path, and test files, or you can copy from. So your choices from copy from, you can copy from the default or group 1 or group 3 in this case. If you want to, for example, clear the description, what I would do is actually have the description checked and click the clear button, and you will see what's going to happen when I do that is this is going to go away. Okay? And in fact, you can just clear the whole thing too. Okay? And then you could, again, you can copy from some different group if you would like. What we're going to do is we're going to copy from group 3 this time, which is the one right below it. And I'm going to copy every single field from that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and just rename this back to second again. Okay, and then we'll validate that. Okay, so I got my first validation, second validation group, and third validation group. So that's what the controls underneath each validation group do. So you've seen this button down here to add validation group before. You can add a validation group, and then of course here's validation group 4. You can remove it too. Okay, so I just removed it. As you saw earlier too, we can also remove all validation groups with one button. Now, if you like the configuration, you can save it. Now, as I mentioned earlier in a PowerPoint presentation, there is a limit, and this tries to save data to a cookie, and a browser cookie has a 5K character limit. I can tell you that with all the field names I have in here right now, in fact, let me just look right here, I'll validate and get a count. Okay, we got 138 files we're validating. It's probably be too large to save this data. So if I hit save, it will tell you it cannot save. You can't save in local storage. There's too much data. And what it's saving in a cookie, by the way, is it serializes all the descriptions, schemas, path, and test files to JSON. So if you want to see what it's actually going to try to save, you can just click on this link right here, and it'll bring up some JSON that shows, here's what I'm trying to save. And there it is right there. This helps with like troubleshooting and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove some of this stuff. Remove all validation groups. Okay. I'm going to remove even some of these down here, so I'll keep the first 5 of these or so. Okay, delete those. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm just creating just a little bit of data I'm validating. So in this case, I have only 16 files I'm actually validating. You should be able to save this. So if I were to save this, it says save to a cookie. Again, if you want to see what was saved to the cookie, you can click on this link right here, and it shows this is the data that was actually saved to the cookie. So this cookie will actually, as long as you don't clear out your cookies or anything like that for your browser, or have any automated processes to remove cache and stuff like that, this will save your configuration for up to a year if you'd like. This button here will clear your saves. So if I hit clear, the save data is clear. So now what happens if I were to refresh this, it goes back to the original CIECA Architecture Team default configuration of 6 validation groups. Show you guys again. Okay, again, so I got the 16 or so, yeah, 15 files this time. If I want to save this one here, so okay, this is saved to a cookie. So what that means really is if I were to just close this and shut down my workstation, come back tomorrow or something like that, and reopen it, it should still be saved in that configuration, 16 or so. Okay, so you saw that I closed the tab for this tool. Again, I could have, went as far as shutting down the workstation, coming back tomorrow, and that is what is saved, is what you saved right there. And once it clear the save data, it'll go back to the defaults of the CIECA Architecture Team's standard configuration. So I'll clear that again, hit refresh. Okay, then now I have, again, the 6 validation groups that the CIECA Architecture Team uses. Okay, so next thing I want to show you guys, so at the top of the tool, for this tool, if you want more information about it, you can click on more info. And in fact, this will take you to the exact same link that I showed you right here. This is the, if you want to, what I kind of did just now is I showed you how to use a tool, but now if you want to actually get the tool and play around with it yourself, here's where you go to get it. It's CIECAtools.com/BATT. You can just type in your browser right here, or you can click on this link right here. Okay, so this is kind of a minimal page. We're just starting to add some information out here, and it's just trying to get some information about the tool out there to people. We have a home page, and it just kind of briefly explains what this tool is, who uses it. We have a download page. So again, as I said in the presentation, you actually have to download this tool, at least part of this tool, to your workstation and run it from there. Because if you try to run it from a server, like CIECAtools.com, it's not going to have any access to your local file system, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the tool. So 2 ways to download this. One, you can click on this link right here, and it will download a zip file with this HTML in it. Your alternate way to download this is basically just to cut and paste this HTML into Notepad or something like that, or your favorite text editor, and save it as an HTML file on your local hard drive and run it from there. So we have a frequently asked questions page. Starts with what does this tool do? So you can click on a question and it brings up the answer here. Okay. I won't go through all of these. I'll let you guys view this yourselves. We do have some help here. Again, we're just starting to add some stuff out here. So earlier I mentioned that to move file names from a directory into the tool, we have this tutorial here. Now, I'm not going to walk you through everything here. I'll let you guys walk through this yourselves on your own, but there's a step-by-step with graphics how to move file names into the tool itself. We'll have more tutorials out here too as we build some more too. Lastly, we have a Contact Us page. If you click on this Contact CIECA, it's going to actually go to the main CIECA.com contact page. So I'll click on that, and it brings it right here. So you're welcome to contact us about this tool through this way, and the questions will get routed to the appropriate people. So at this point, I know I said an awful lot. You guys probably have questions. The questions are out there right now.
Rick?
Yep.
Okay. One of the questions is, do you have a definition, if you will, of what the validation group really is?
So we did do actually that in the frequently asked questions, and I'm going to take a look at that while I answer this.
What is, there it is.
Yeah, so there's a question for a default section and a validation group, okay? So we did our best to answer this. Basically, the validation group is a logical grouping of 4 different fields: the description, which is optional, the schema, the path, and the test files. I'm going to go back to the tool and show you guys. Basically, the validation group itself here is just a logical grouping of this description, this schema path and file, path to test files, and the test files themselves. Okay, so every validation group will have these 4 things in it.
Okay, What does that equate to in terms, because I know like the architecture has many different validation groups for things that they're doing, but what would a normal business have multiple validation groups for?
Okay. So validation groups can be used to test the same data against two different schemas, or it can be used to test two different groups of data against the same schema. So let me see if I can demonstrate this a little bit. It's probably easy if I start over again. So just if I add a validation group, and if I, so the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to test the same group of data using two different schemas. So in this case, I'm going to test the first one using the code extension schema. Okay, and I'm going to add a second validation group. It's going to use the same defaults, which is this up here. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the, instead of the code extension schemas, use the classic code schemas. Okay. Again, one's validating code lists and one is not. That's the difference between these two. Okay. So this is a case right here where both of these validation groups are testing the same data, which is the default, but they're using two different schemas. It's using the code extension schema in the first one and a classic code schema in the second one. So this is one use case for two different validation groups, is you're testing the same data against two different schemas. Okay, so I'll hit validate here, let it run. Okay, we've seen this already. The second use case, you use two or more validation groups. Let's change the schema here, and instead of making it the classic code schema, let's use the same exact schema as, there's two ways to do this, by the way, too. We can actually just copy from group one. So I'm going to say let's copy the schema from validation group one. So to copy from, click on this link. Okay, now it just copied what was up here down to here because I selected copy from validation group one, apply it to schema. So in this case, we are now are using the same schema in validation group 1 as in validation group 2. But in this case, we may want to, for example, use a different group of test data. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick too. And change the data. Okay, so now in this case, this second use case for a couple different validation groups. We're using the same schema, but the first one is using the default test data, and the second one is using our own custom test path and test data right here. So we'll validate that. And you can see there's two different validation groups, and it has two different groups of data this time. So I hope that helps explain a little bit why you would use a couple different validation groups.
Yes, I've got one more question. It says, when did you say this would work on other operating systems or browsers? Or will it?
As of now, it won't, simply because of the limitation that uses Microsoft, which is proprietary technology, Microsoft's ActiveX. It's kind of unfortunate, however, that was given that we needed this tool sooner rather than later for what we're testing these days. We needed something. This was the quickest path to build a tool like this. Certainly we are going to look long term and try to, there'll be something in the future that would replace this. In the short term and medium term, as of now, Microsoft is not, they're still supporting ActiveX. So this will work But yeah, like I say, the writing is on the wall. You know, probably 5 years or more. You know, Microsoft eventually will abandon ActiveX. They haven't actually said that. That's just a guess of mine. But yeah, in the meantime, you know, that probably gives us a few years to think about. You know, how can we replace the technologies to actually build this tool? As of right now, like I say, there is no real easy or obvious ways to do this. At least, you know, in a reasonable amount of time. You could always throw lots of money and time at things and get things done, but this is a case where, you know, ActiveX was a very good technology, a very good fit for this type of thing, and there's no real easy replacement. So for now, we'll use it while it's supported.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rick.
Yep.
Let me just get myself set up here. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rick, for the great presentation. To the audience, I want to ask you to join us for our next CIECA casts. On March 21st, we'll be talking about some new technology with CIECA and the development of standards. On April 25th, we'll be talking about our latest committee, CER, the Combined Environmental Reporting. On May 16th, we will presenting how to convert. One of our end users will be talking about how to convert from the EMS to the BMS. In June timeframe, we'll have our Ask the Experts and what's new in 2017 R1. July 18th, we'll be talking about CIECA, how CIECA is used with our parts providers. There's others. Go to the website. I didn't want to walk you through all those things. But most importantly, I want to invite you, save the date, September 18th through the 20th in Cleveland. It's a great hotel. We've got a great lineup of speakers. We'll have a presentation from NASA, from the National Highway Safety Institute. We'll be some case studies of actual implementations. You know, just a well-rounded something for the repairers, something for recyclers, something for developers, and something for business people. So there's something for everyone. That includes today's CIECA cast. Thank you for joining us. As always, a video of today's presentation will be available on the CIECA website within 48 hours. Thank you and have a great day. Bye now.